Three white officers surround a black man in a suit. Veteran, prove it. You don't look like a soldier. Police station. Morning chaos. Elijah Carter stands tall despite the humiliation. The precinct captain smirks, tapping his badge deliberately. Maybe he's one of those stolen valor types. We get them all the time. Officers laugh, exchanging knowing glances. Elijah reaches for his phone, voice steady. I just need to make one call. The captain's hand shoots out, knocking the phone from his grip. It clatters across the linoleum floor. You're not calling anyone until we verify who you really are. Elijah calmly retrieves his phone, meets the precinct camera's unblinking eye, and says, You just made the biggest mistake of your career. Elijah Carter, 45, adjusts his tie as he approaches the precinct's front desk. His suit jacket hangs perfectly on his broad shoulders, evidence of a military man's posture even in civilian attire. The watch on his wrist, a gift from his unit after their third deployment, catches the fluorescent light. 20 minutes ago, he was cheering at his son's basketball game. Now, he's reporting suspicious surveillance activity he spotted near a classified government facility. Captain Lawson notices Elijah immediately but deliberately busies himself with paperwork. Three white civilians enter after Elijah. Lawson looks up, smiles. How can I help you folks? The group gets immediate attention while Elijah stands waiting, invisible. Minutes pass. Elijah shifts his weight, patient but aware. Finally, Lawson acknowledges him with a curt nod. You need something? I need to report suspicious activity near the Westbrook facility, Elijah explains, voice measured and authoritative. Lawson's eyebrow raises. Suspicious how? You sure you didn't just see maintenance workers? The condescension drips from each syllable. These weren't maintenance workers, Elijah states firmly. They were using advanced surveillance equipment and employing counter-detection measures consistent with hostile intelligence gathering. Officers Diaz and Reynolds exchange glances behind their desks. Diaz, mid-30s, Latina, frowns slightly. Reynolds, older, white, smirks. ID, Reynolds demands, approaching. Elijah produces his civilian driver's license. I also have government credentials, Elijah offers. Reynolds ignores this, studies the license instead. Riverdale Heights, he reads Elijah's address aloud, eyebrows rising. Nice neighborhood, very exclusive. The implication hangs in the air. As Elijah describes the surveillance techniques in precise detail, Lawson interrupts him mid-sentence. And how exactly would you recognize suspicious surveillance techniques? He makes air quotes, eyes narrowing. Actually, I recognize them because I helped develop the counter-surveillance protocols for the Department of Defense, Elijah says evenly, watching their expressions shift. Captain Lawson's face hardens. The friendly demeanor he showed the white civilians vanishes completely. Everyone's a government contractor these days, he sneers, making air quotes again. Half the security guards at the mall claim they're ex-special forces. Officer Diaz steps forward. Sir, maybe we should focus on the report itself. If there's suspicious activity, I'll handle this, Diaz. Lawson cuts her off without looking away from Elijah. You were saying something about the Department of Defense? Elijah maintains perfect composure. No raised voice, no defensive posture, just the steady gaze of a man who's faced far worse than precinct bullies. Captain, I need to file this report quickly. It may involve national security. I'm mentioning my military background and current Pentagon position only so you understand the credibility of my assessment. Pentagon position, Lawson repeats, sharing a knowing look with Officer Reynolds. His voice drips with mockery. Veteran, prove it. You don't look like you've served a day in your life. Elijah reaches into his jacket pocket. I can show you my credentials. Hand where I can see them, Lawson barks, hand moving instinctively toward his weapon. Slowly. I'm retrieving digital verification, Elijah explains calmly, fingers pausing mid-motion. Officer Diaz tries again. What branch did you serve in, sir? Elijah begins to answer. Special Forces, 5th Group, 3 tours in. Special Forces? Lawson interrupts with an exaggerated laugh. Right. And I'm the Secretary of Defense. He turns to Reynolds. Can you believe this guy? Elijah's expression doesn't change, but something in his eyes hardens. His voice remains level, controlled. Captain, I'd like your name and badge number, please. The request visibly aggravates Lawson. His face flushes. You come in here making false claims, wasting police resources, and now you're threatening me? He steps closer to Elijah. How about this? We detain you for filing a false report and impersonating a government official. How does that sound? I'm not impersonating anyone, Captain Lawson, but in about 10 minutes, you're going to wish this conversation never happened. Forced humiliation, 551 to 550. Empty your pockets. Captain Lawson's order cuts through the precinct's ambient noise. Now! He gestures to a holding area visible to everyone in the lobby. Civilians waiting to file reports, officers passing through, administrative staff. All eyes turn toward Elijah. This is unnecessary, Elijah states. Not a plea, a fact. Let's see what a Pentagon official carries these days, Lawson says loudly enough for the entire precinct to hear. Several officers pause their work, watching the scene unfold. Elijah complies with measured movements. No resistance, no hurry. He places each item carefully on the counter. Leather wallet, car keys, an encrypted smartphone clearly marked with federal insignia, and lastly, a challenge coin from his Special Forces unit. The metal disc gleams under the fluorescent lights, its insignia and motto immediately recognizable to anyone with military knowledge. Lawson picks up the challenge coin, turning it carelessly between his fingers like a cheap poker chip. Nice prop. You can buy these online, you know. He flicks it back onto the counter, where it spins before settling. Officer Diaz notices the government-issue phone, touches Lawson's sleeve, and whispers something. He shakes her off. These can be faked, too. More officers gather, drawn by the spectacle. Civilians in the waiting area stare openly. Some film with their phones. Lawson, energized by his audience, speaks louder. We get these stolen valor cases all the time, folks. People pretending to be heroes. He addresses the room now, not Elijah. Usually they're trying to scam discounts or sympathy. Elijah stands perfectly still. Only the muscle working in his jaw betrays his controlled fury. Captain, I'm trying to report a legitimate security concern. This treatment is unnecessary and unprofessional. Lawson ignores him, continuing his performative search. He pulls out Elijah's wallet, rifling through it with deliberate slowness until he finds what he's looking for. A military ID card tucked behind credit cards. He studies it, turning it under the light, looking for flaws. Could be fake, he declares, though uncertainty flickers briefly across his face. These cards have security features. Without verification, this means nothing. May I make a phone call to verify my identity? Elijah asks. Suspects don't get to make calls until we're done processing them. I'm not a suspect, Elijah corrects him, voice still steady. I came here to file a report. The humiliation reaches its peak when Lawson addresses his fellow officers. We'll need to detain Mr. Carter overnight until we can verify these claims. He lowers his voice, but intentionally remains audible. Possible mental health situation. Another wannabe with delusions of grandeur. Throughout this ordeal, civilians and officers witness a distinguished black man in business attire being treated like a common criminal, without charge, without cause, without dignity. Elijah's expression remains composed, but his eyes reveal flashes of something dangerous, controlled rage building behind a lifetime of practiced restraint. As Lawson begins paperwork to formally detain him, Elijah speaks quietly. You have exactly one opportunity to correct this situation before I'm forced to escalate it beyond your control. Officer Diaz approaches with a paper cup of water, offering it when Lawson steps away to speak with Reynolds.
"I'm sorry about this,"
she whispers, barely audible. Elijah accepts the water with a dignified nod. "Thank you, officer." The small act of decency in this hostile environment lands like rain in a desert. In this moment of connection, something resolves in Elijah's mind. A silent, ironclad vow that forms in the space between heartbeats. This treatment stops today, not just for him. For anyone who might walk through these doors and face the same prejudice. "Captain's having a bad day," Diaz offers weakly, eyes darting to ensure Lawson isn't watching their interaction. "And how many people suffer on his bad days?" Elijah asks quietly. Diaz doesn't answer. Can't answer. Lawson moves toward the break room, engaged in animated conversation with Reynolds. Elijah seizes the moment. "Officer Diaz, may I use the restroom?" She hesitates, then nods. "I'll have to escort you." "Understood." As they walk the short corridor to the restroom, Diaz speaks under her breath. "I really am sorry about how the captain's treating you." "What's your first name, Officer Diaz?" Elijah asks. "Elena." "Thank you, Elena." He commits the name to memory. In the bathroom's privacy, Elijah moves with practiced efficiency. From an ankle holster concealed beneath his pant leg, he extracts a slim secondary phone, a secure line for emergencies, standard equipment for someone of his security clearance. 3 messages sent in less than 30 seconds. First, to Pentagon Security Command, precinct address, and a single code word, sundown. Second, to his executive assistant, access precinct surveillance feeds, document everything, Protocol 7. Third, to retired General Mitchell, his former commanding officer. James, Westbrook situation escalating. Also facing immediate interference from local law enforcement. May need intervention. Location follows. As he types, memories surface. Elijah in desert fatigues, receiving his Silver Star while General Mitchell beams with pride. Elijah in a classified Pentagon briefing room, explaining surveillance countermeasures to a room of Joint Chiefs and intelligence directors. These images juxtapose with Captain Lawson's sneering face. "You don't look like you've served a day in your life." He flushes the unused toilet, washes his hands thoroughly, and returns the secure phone to its hidden holster. When Officer Diaz escorts him back, his demeanor has subtly shifted. Still polite, still composed, but with an undercurrent of absolute certainty. Lawson waits in the holding area, arms crossed. "Thinking about running, were we?" "No need," Elijah replies. "We'll need to run your fingerprints to confirm your identity," Lawson announces, clearly enjoying this extension of his authority. "That won't be necessary, but proceed if you feel it's appropriate," Elijah says. Diaz notices the change in Elijah's demeanor, a quiet confidence that wasn't there before. Something has shifted. Their eyes meet briefly, a silent acknowledgement passing between them. Elijah makes one final appeal to reason. "Captain, I came here to report suspicious activity near a secured facility. That information is time-sensitive. Your personal feelings about me are irrelevant to national security." Lawson scoffs. "Now it's national security. Next, you'll tell me the president's waiting for your call." Elijah checks his watch and says simply, "No, not the president, but in approximately 2 minutes you'll be receiving a call from the Pentagon." Lawson laughs, a sharp, dismissive sound that echoes through the precinct. "Right. The Pentagon. Just like your special forces." He returns to his paperwork, pen scratching loudly across the form that will formally detain Elijah for further questioning. "Should we check his story?" Officer Diaz suggests quietly. "We'll verify his Pentagon credentials tomorrow," Lawson says, making air quotes without looking up. "Maybe after he spends a night in holding, he'll drop this act." The precinct phone rings. The desk sergeant, a weathered officer with salt and pepper hair, answers, expression neutral. Then something changes. His eyebrows rise. He straightens in his chair. "Yes, he's here." A pause. Of course. He covers the receiver, voice suddenly formal. Captain Lawson, it's for you, sir. They say it's urgent. Lawson's irritation is visible as he crosses to the desk. Who is it? The sergeant just holds out the phone, something like apprehension in his eyes. Lawson snatches the receiver. This is Captain Lawson. His expression shifts from annoyance to confusion within seconds. Yes, I'm handling a situation with someone claiming to... He stops, listening. No, I don't think... Another interruption. Lawson's face hardens. Who is this exactly? The precinct's atmosphere changes. Officers notice their captain's demeanor transforming. Even civilians sense the shift in energy. Lawson's complexion pales slightly. General Mitchell, Yes, sir. I understand, but... His eyes dart to Elijah, uncertainty replacing his earlier confidence. Elijah remains perfectly still. His expression betrays nothing, but his eyes track every minute change in Lawson's posture, the tightening of his shoulders, the nervous adjustment of his collar. Officer Diaz watches from her desk, attention ping-ponging between the two men, witnessing power dynamics realigning in real time. Lawson hangs up, visibly rattled but fighting to maintain his authority. That could have been anyone, he declares, though his voice lacks conviction. To save face in front of his officers, he doubles down. We still need to verify your identity before... His words die as every computer in the precinct suddenly chimes with the distinctive alert tone of a high-priority security notification. Officers call out in surprise. On each screen appears an official federal security alert containing Elijah's photograph, full name, rank, and security clearance level, all classified top secret. What the hell? Reynolds mutters, staring at his monitor. Is this real? Another officer asks, pointing at his screen. Lawson's face drains of color as he reads the alert on the nearest computer, an unequivocal confirmation of everything Elijah claimed, along with a stern reminder about proper protocols when dealing with Pentagon officials. As officers stare at their screens in disbelief, the precinct doors burst open and two stern-faced military police officers enter, scanning the room until they lock eyes with Elijah. The military police officers move with practiced precision through the suddenly silent precinct. Their uniforms are immaculate, posture perfect, faces professionally neutral. They approach Elijah directly, ignoring everyone else in the room. Coming to attention, they execute perfect salutes. Deputy Director Carter, the senior MP addresses him formally. General Mitchell sends his regards. The transformation in the room is immediate. Civilians whisper among themselves. Officers exchange shocked glances. Elijah returns the salute with the practiced ease of a career military man. Captain Lawson steps forward, attempting to reassert control in his own precinct. Excuse me, who authorized military personnel to enter this building? This is a civilian police matter. The MPs don't even acknowledge his existence. Their focus remains exclusively on Elijah. Sir, General Mitchell sent us to escort you. The situation you reported is being investigated with highest priority, and your presence is requested back at the Pentagon immediately. Thank you, Sergeant, Elijah responds with professional courtesy. Then he turns to Lawson. There's an administrative matter here that needs resolution first. His voice carries no anger, no triumph, only the calm authority of someone accustomed to command. Captain, I still need to file that report about the suspicious activity. It's why I came here in the first place. Lawson stands frozen, caught between embarrassment and defiance. Every eye in the precinct watches him, waiting for his response. After a painfully long silence, he reluctantly nods to Officer Diaz. Take the Deputy Director's statement. The power dynamic has completely reversed, but Elijah displays no gloating, no arrogance. He simply nods and follows Officer Diaz to her desk, the military police officers positioning themselves at parade rest nearby. As Diaz begins taking his statement, the precinct phones start ringing, not just one line, but several simultaneously. The desk sergeant juggles calls, looking increasingly overwhelmed. Captain, the sergeant calls out, hand covering a receiver. I've got the mayor's office on line 1, the police commissioner on line 2, and someone from the Department of Defense liaison office on line 3. They're all asking about a situation here. Through the precinct's glass doors and windows, more vehicles arrive. Black SUVs with government plates, parking with precision. Men in suits with earpieces emerge, establishing a perimeter around the building. Their movements are coordinated, professional. Several officers move to the windows, watching with growing concern. Lawson, witnessing his authority crumbling by the second, approaches Elijah with a strained smile. "There seems to have been a misunderstanding, Deputy Director. If you had just identified yourself properly from the beginning," Elijah interrupts, voice level but powerful. "I did identify myself, Captain. You chose not to believe me because of what you saw when you looked at me." Chaos, controlled but undeniable, spreads through the precinct. Officers huddle in small groups, whispering. Phones continue ringing. The civilian visitors sense the tension and watch wide-eyed from the waiting area. Police Commissioner Daniels arrives, a tall man with silver hair and the confident stride of someone used to being the highest authority in any room. He immediately pulls Captain Lawson aside, their hushed conversation taking place in a glass-walled office. Despite the privacy, their body language tells the story. Daniels gesturing sharply. Lawson's defensive posture gradually collapsing into something resembling defeat. His face cycles through emotions, shock, denial, and finally, unmistakable fear. Meanwhile, Elijah continues giving his statement to Officer Diaz, detailing the surveillance activity with expert precision. 2 individuals, approximately 0600 hours, using modified DSLR cameras with telephoto capabilities, positioned at the north perimeter fence. Their behavior indicated familiarity with blind spots in the security system. The MPs stand at attention nearby, a visible reminder of Elijah's authority and the seriousness of the situation. Their presence creates an island of military discipline amid the precinct's growing disorder. More Pentagon officials arrive, including Elijah's executive assistant, a sharp-eyed woman in her 30s carrying a leather portfolio stamped with classified markings. She approaches with brisk efficiency. "Deputy Director, I've brought the materials you requested," she says, handing him the portfolio with a familiarity that speaks to their professional relationship. General Mitchell has been briefed. The secretary wants an update within the hour. Through the glass walls of the precinct, media vans begin arriving. Local news first, then national outlets. Word has somehow leaked about a Pentagon situation at the local police station. Commissioner Daniels emerges from the office, leaving Lawson sitting alone, staring blankly at his desk. Daniels approaches Elijah with an extended hand and a diplomatic smile. "Deputy Director Carter, please accept my sincere apologies for any misunderstanding. I assure you this isn't how our precincts typically operate." Elijah stands, accepting the handshake with a firm grip. "This isn't about me, Commissioner. It's about a pattern of behavior that needs addressing." Across the room, Lawson sees an opportunity amid the confusion. He rises from his desk, edging toward a side exit, attempting to slip away unnoticed. Elijah notices immediately. "Sergeant," he addresses one of the MPs without raising his voice, "please ensure Captain Lawson remains available for our pending discussion." The MP nods once and moves to block Lawson's escape route. Elijah's executive assistant leans in, whispering something urgent. He nods and addresses the room. "I need to take a secure call regarding the surveillance situation I reported. Commissioner Daniels, perhaps we could use your office to discuss next steps afterward?" The commissioner nods quickly. "Of course, Deputy Director. Whatever you need." As Elijah steps away for his call, Lawson desperately asks Commissioner Daniels, "What's happening?" And the commissioner responds grimly, "He's not just Pentagon Lawson. He chairs the Congressional Oversight Committee on Police Accountability." Elijah returns from his call to find the precinct transformed. Senior police officials have arrived, captains from other precincts, the department's legal counsel, internal affairs representatives. Captain Lawson sits isolated in a corner, no longer attempting escape, but seemingly unable to process his rapidly deteriorating situation. Officer Diaz speaks quietly with Commissioner Daniels, occasionally glancing toward Elijah. The commissioner leads Elijah and the senior officials to a conference room. Once the door closes, creating a barrier between them and the buzzing precinct, Elijah reveals his full identity. "Gentlemen, ladies, I am Deputy Director Elijah Carter, Pentagon Intelligence Operations." His voice carries the weight of absolute authority. "I'm also a decorated Special Forces veteran with 3 Purple Hearts, 2 Bronze Stars, and a Silver Star." He pauses, allowing this to register. "But most relevant to our current situation, I was recently appointed Chair of the Congressional Oversight Committee on Police Accountability and Reform, a committee formed specifically to address patterns of discriminatory practices in law enforcement nationwide." The room temperature seems to drop several degrees. Officials exchange alarmed glances. "I wasn't planning to identify myself as the committee chair during what should have been a routine report," Elijah continues. "My visit to this precinct was genuinely to report suspicious activity near a classified facility, but Captain Lawson's behavior has now become an official case for the committee." His executive assistant distributes tablets to everyone present. "What you're seeing," Elijah explains, "is security footage from this precinct, retrieved 10 minutes ago. It shows my entire interaction with Captain Lawson and his officers." On screen, officials watch Lawson's dismissive treatment, his escalating aggression, his deliberate humiliation tactics. The evidence is damning. "Additionally," Elijah adds, "my secure phone activated recording features during the encounter, capturing audio not available on your surveillance system." Through the conference room's glass walls, Lawson is visible in the main precinct area. The scene shifts to his perspective. Lawson sits alone, repeatedly checking his phone. He calls a colleague. "Mike, it's Lawson. I need advice." His voice is urgent, panicked. "You heard anything about some congressional committee? Police accountability?" He listens, face falling. "Yeah, he's here now. Carter. Deputy Director or something." Another pause. "What do you mean, don't say anything else?" "Mike? Mike?" The call ends. Lawson stares at his phone, abandoned by his support network. Back in the conference room, Elijah outlines 2 potential paths forward. Option 1. An official investigation into this precinct with Captain Lawson as the central focus. Given the evidence already collected, this would likely result in departmental disciplinary actions, potential civil rights violation charges, and public hearings before my committee. The officials listen with growing alarm. Commissioner Daniels clears his throat. "And option 2? Systemic reform, starting immediately with this precinct as a model program." Elijah's tone shifts, becoming less prosecutorial and more collaborative. "I want to be clear. My interest isn't in punishing one officer, but fixing a broken culture." He nods to his assistant, who distributes detailed documents. "This is a comprehensive reform plan my committee developed. Implicit bias training, community oversight boards, transparency measures, and accountability protocols. We've been looking for a jurisdiction willing to implement it voluntarily." Commissioner Daniels studies the document, recognition dawning. "This would be fully funded?" "By the committee, yes," Elijah confirms. "This isn't about revenge." His gaze sweeps the room, meeting each official's eyes. "It's about ensuring no one walks into this precinct, or any precinct, and experiences what I did today based on assumptions about their appearance." As the officials absorb this opportunity disguised as a crisis, Elijah adds, "And to be clear, the suspicious activity I initially reported is real and time-sensitive." 1 week later, Commissioner Daniels stands before a forest of microphones, camera flashes punctuating his carefully prepared statement. "Today marks the beginning of a historic partnership between our police department and the Congressional Oversight Committee on Police Accountability and Reform." And beside him stands Elijah, dressed in a conservative suit, his posture military straight. The contrast between the 2 men is striking. Daniels, nervous but determined. Elijah, quietly confident. The committee has selected our department for a pilot program implementing sweeping reforms in policing practices, Daniels continues. We volunteered for this opportunity because we are committed to the highest standards of public service. The word volunteered causes several reporters to exchange skeptical glances. The story of what happened at the precinct has leaked in fragments, growing with each retelling. The press release doesn't mention Captain Lawson by name, but his conspicuous absence speaks volumes. Work begins immediately. Elijah brings in his team of experts, former FBI agents specializing in civil rights enforcement, retired police chiefs known for innovative community policing, civil liberties attorneys, community organizers, and technology specialists. They transform the precinct's largest conference room into a command center for reform. Officer Elena Diaz, recognized for her attempts to mitigate the situation with Elijah, receives a new assignment: internal implementation leader. When Elijah offers her the position, she hesitates. Some officers won't like working with me on this, she admits. That's precisely why you're the right choice, Elijah responds. You showed moral courage when it wasn't convenient. Resistance among the rank and file begins immediately. During the first mandatory implicit bias training session, several officers sit with arms crossed, expressions hostile. One veteran cop stands up. This is political correctness garbage. We can't do our jobs if we're second-guessing every interaction. Elijah doesn't argue or defend. Instead, he plays the precinct's security footage of his own treatment. The room falls silent as they watch one of their own deliberately humiliating a distinguished veteran and Pentagon official based solely on appearance. This isn't about politics, Elijah says when the video ends. It's about effectiveness. Captain Lawson was so blinded by bias that he ignored a legitimate national security threat. That's not just morally wrong, it's dangerous policing. Community meetings begin, held in the precinct itself. Local residents, particularly from marginalized communities, share their experiences with law enforcement. Some officers are visibly shocked at the pattern of similar stories. A young black law student describes being pulled over 17 times in 1 year, never receiving a ticket. An elderly Hispanic woman explains why her neighborhood no longer reports crimes. A Muslim business owner details the harassment his family faces after each national security incident. We didn't know, one officer admits privately to Diaz afterward. You patrol the same streets for 10 years. You think you understand your community. The reforms progress methodically. Body camera footage review protocols are strengthened, with random audits by civilian reviewers. De-escalation training becomes mandatory, with officers role-playing difficult scenarios under the guidance of experts. An independent civilian review board is established with actual authority to recommend disciplinary actions. Recruitment practices are revised to attract more diverse candidates. Throughout this process, Elijah is firm but fair. During a particularly tense meeting, he addresses the entire precinct. I recognize that most of you are good officers trying to do a difficult job. These reforms aren't punishment. They're tools to help you do that job better and go home safely each night. Gradually, resistance gives way to cautious participation. Officers begin sharing their own frustrations with previous practices, offering suggestions for improvements. The precinct's atmosphere transforms from hostile defensiveness to cautious collaboration. While reforms reshape the precinct, Captain Lawson's professional life unravels with stunning speed. The day after the incident, he receives official notice of administrative leave pending investigation. His police union representative, a veteran negotiator named Sullivan, reviews the evidence and delivers blunt advice. Resign now while you can still keep some of your pension, Sullivan urges in the privacy of Lawson's home. This isn't going away. It was a misunderstanding, Lawson insists, pacing his living room. He didn't properly identify himself. Anyone would have been suspicious. Sullivan slides the tablet across the coffee table. Watch the footage, Frank. All of it. Then tell me this was just a misunderstanding. Lawson refuses to watch. Pride prevents him from taking the exit offered. I've got 23 years on the force. I'm not slinking away over this. Internal Affairs doesn't share his confidence. Their investigation uncovers a pattern of similar incidents throughout Lawson's career. Complaints filed by minorities that were dismissed or buried. Fellow officers, sensing which way the wind is blowing, begin distancing themselves. Some, seeking to protect their own careers, share stories of problematic behavior they previously ignored or excused. Remember that traffic stop last summer? The professor from the community college? One officer tells Internal Affairs. Lawson made him sit on the curb for 45 minutes because he looked suspicious. Guy was just driving home from work. Media coverage intensifies. A local reporter discovers Lawson's social media history, posts about thugs and animals, thinly veiling racial animus. Cable news picks up the story, framing it as emblematic of larger problems in policing. Overnight, Lawson becomes the face of systemic bias. His attorney, a department-appointed lawyer named Harris, advises settlement after reviewing the mounting evidence. Frank, they have you on video and audio, multiple witnesses, a documented history of complaints. Take the deal they're offering. Lawson refuses, believing he can beat the charges in a disciplinary hearing. It's my word against his. It's your word against a decorated war hero with Pentagon clearance and a congressional appointment, Harris corrects him, plus video evidence, audio recordings, and witnesses. As weeks pass, Lawson's support system crumbles. Colleagues stop taking his calls. The union's enthusiasm for his defense wanes. His own family questions his version of events after seeing news coverage. In a desperate move, Lawson reaches out to Elijah through intermediaries, offering to resign quietly in exchange for the investigation being dropped. The response comes back immediately. Any resolution must be transparent and follow established procedures. No private arrangements. The two narratives converge as reforms reshape the precinct while Lawson's career implodes, a symbolic parallel of old systems giving way to new approaches. As Lawson prepares for his disciplinary hearing, still believing he can salvage his career, his attorney receives a file containing evidence that makes him immediately call Lawson. We need to talk about settlement. The disciplinary hearing room buzzes with tension. Despite being closed to the public, the space overflows with attendees, police officials, union representatives, legal counsel, community oversight members, and carefully selected media. Captain Lawson enters with remaining bravado, shoulders back, chin lifted. He's dressed in full uniform despite being on administrative leave, medals and commendations prominently displayed. He scans the room, nodding to former colleagues who avoid his gaze. His confidence falters only when he spots Elijah Carter seated quietly in the back row. Not at the front as a primary witness or accuser, but observing, bearing witness to the process he helped create. The hearing begins with dry procedural matters. Lawson sits stiffly, occasionally leaning to whisper to his attorney, who responds with tight-lipped nods. Lawson's defense strategy becomes clear in his opening statement. He was following protocol with an unidentified individual making extraordinary claims. Any perception of bias is misunderstanding his thoroughness. Then the evidence presentation begins. The room darkens. On screen, high-definition security footage from multiple angles shows the entire encounter. Every dismissive gesture, every sneer, every moment of deliberate humiliation plays out in clinical detail. When the lights rise, several committee members are visibly disturbed. Next, audio recordings from Elijah's secure phone capture what the security cameras missed. Lawson's dismissive comments, his mocking tone, his escalating hostility. The contrast between Elijah's composed responses and Lawson's increasingly aggressive behavior is stark. Internal Affairs presents their findings. 17 similar complaints over Lawson's career, all involving minorities, all dismissed without proper investigation. Statistics demonstrating disparities in how Lawson treated civilians based on race. Performance reviews noting concerns about community relations that never resulted in consequences. Most damning is the newly discovered evidence that prompted his lawyer's urgent call. Body camera footage from 3 previous incidents showing Lawson's contrasting behavior. Professional courtesy to white civilians in identical situations where he displayed hostility toward people of color. The pattern is undeniable, the evidence irrefutable. When questioned directly about his treatment of Deputy Director Carter, Lawson's answers reveal biases he doesn't even recognize in himself. "Why didn't you believe Mr. Carter's identification?" the committee chair asks. "He didn't fit the profile," Lawson responds. "What profile is that, Captain?" "Of a Pentagon official, a Special Forces veteran." "And what does such a person look like in your experience?" Lawson's mouth opens, then closes. The trap is elegant in its simplicity. Any answer he gives will only deepen his predicament. As testimony continues, Lawson's composed facade crumbles. Officer Diaz describes the precinct's culture under his command. Officers afraid to intervene when Lawson targeted minorities, informal quotas for certain neighborhoods, rewards for aggressive enforcement in communities of color. The breaking point comes when the committee questions Lawson about ignoring the suspicious activity report, potentially compromising national security because of his bias. "I was just doing my job," Lawson finally shouts, rising from his chair. "Anyone could claim to be from the Pentagon. You weren't there. You don't know what it's like dealing with these people every day who come in with their stories and their excuses." The outburst hangs in the air. These people. The words echo in the sudden silence. The disciplinary board's decision is unanimous and unprecedented in its severity. Termination with complete loss of pension and benefits. Additionally, they recommend a comprehensive review of all arrests and citations issued under Lawson's command for potential civil rights violations, opening the door to lawsuits and possible criminal charges. As Lawson leaves the hearing room, career destroyed and reputation in tatters, he passes Elijah's seat. Their eyes meet briefly. Elijah doesn't smile or nod. He doesn't need to. This victory isn't personal against Lawson, but against the system that enabled him for decades. As news of the decision spreads through law enforcement nationwide, Elijah receives an unexpected call from the White House. The president would like to discuss expanding your pilot program nationally. 6 months later, the precinct bears little resemblance to the place where Elijah Carter once stood humiliated. The physical space remains, same walls, same desks, same fluorescent lighting. But the atmosphere has fundamentally changed. New leadership, new protocols, new relationships between officers and the community they serve. Crime statistics tell an unexpected story. Critics predicted chaos, criminals emboldened, officers hamstrung by new regulations. Reality proves different. Violent crime rates remain stable, but clearance rates for serious offenses improve dramatically. The reason becomes clear in community surveys. People now report crimes they previously wouldn't, share information they once withheld, cooperate with investigations they previously avoided. The pilot program expands to 5 other cities with similar results. Philadelphia implements the oversight model first, followed by Atlanta, Detroit, Phoenix, and San Diego. Each department shows initial resistance followed by measurable improvements in community relations and effectiveness. Police unions, initially the fiercest opponents, begin shifting their stance as evidence accumulates. The reforms deliver unexpected benefits for officers. Fewer excessive force complaints mean fewer lawsuits. Improved community relationships reduce violent confrontations. De-escalation training prevents situations that might have turned deadly. Officers report higher job satisfaction when not viewed as an occupying force in the neighborhoods they patrol. In a wood-paneled congressional hearing room, Elijah testifies about the program's success. Cameras broadcast his testimony nationwide. "This isn't about being anti-police," he explains, voice carrying the same calm authority he maintained even when facing Lawson's humiliation. "It's about being pro-justice. When departments implement these reforms, everyone benefits. Communities feel safer. Officers face fewer dangerous confrontations. Taxpayers save millions in lawsuit settlements." The data supports his assertions. Charts and graphs display the program's results across multiple metrics: Reduced complaints, improved solve rates, decreased use of force incidents, higher officer retention, and most importantly, increased trust between communities and law enforcement. Media coverage shows the transformation. A national news magazine runs a feature with before and after interviews. Officer Elena Diaz, now promoted to Community Liaison Sergeant, speaks candidly. "We thought we were doing community policing before," she explains, standing in the precinct's new public meeting space. "But we were just paying lip service to the concept. Now we actually listen." The ripple effects spread beyond the pilot cities. Police academies across the country revise their training curricula based on the new model. Departments voluntarily adopt elements of the program: civilian oversight boards, implicit bias training, transparency measures. What began as one bad encounter in one precinct catalyzes nationwide change. In a full-circle moment, Elijah returns to the original precinct, now under new leadership. He's there once again to report suspicious activity, this time observed near a different government facility. The desk sergeant doesn't recognize him immediately, but the response is professionally courteous, the process efficient and respectful. As Elijah completes his report, the new precinct captain emerges from his office. "Deputy Director Carter," he says, extending his hand. "It's an honor to meet you, sir. Your reforms have transformed how we do our jobs." Elijah accepts the handshake with a nod. "The reforms are working because your officers embraced them. That's the real success story here." As Elijah leaves the reformed precinct, satisfied with the changes his humiliation ultimately produced, his phone rings with news about former Captain Lawson that will test his commitment to justice versus retribution. Calm epilogue plus moral, 638-640. 1 year after the incident that transformed policing practices across the country, Elijah sits in his Pentagon office reviewing intelligence reports. Afternoon sunlight streams through bulletproof windows, illuminating the photographs on his desk. Elijah with his family, with his Special Forces unit, with the president signing the Police Accountability Act that codified many of the reforms his pilot program pioneered. A knock at the door. His executive assistant enters with a folder marked Personnel Security Review. "This just came through the system, sir. I thought you'd want to see it personally." Elijah opens the folder. Inside, an employment background check for Frank Lawson, former police captain, now applying for a security guard position with Meridian Defense Solutions, a firm that contracts extensively with the Department of Defense. The background check has flagged his history, and due to the nature of the termination and the Pentagon connection, the decision has been escalated to Elijah's desk. He studies the application in silence. This moment carries weight, a perfect symmetry of power reversal. A year ago, Lawson held Elijah's fate in his hands, judging him unworthy based on appearance alone. Now Elijah holds Lawson's future with a simple signature. Justice would be served by blocking Lawson from ever working in security again. The man demonstrated profound bias and catastrophic judgment. The decision would be entirely justified. Instead, Elijah pulls up additional reports on Lawson's activities since his termination. The former captain has completed extensive bias training, not just the minimum required, but advanced courses at his own expense. He's volunteered at a community center in a predominantly black neighborhood, coaching youth basketball. He's enrolled in courses on civil rights history at the local community college. Elijah picks up his phone and calls Meridian's security director, a former colleague from his Pentagon intelligence days. "Jim, it's Elijah Carter. I'm reviewing an application for one of your security positions. Frank Lawson." "I know his history, Elijah. If you're calling to block it, I understand completely." "Actually, I'm calling to recommend a probationary period with regular reviews and ongoing training," Elijah responds. "People can change if given the opportunity and proper guidance." Silence on the line. "You're serious? After what he did to you? Especially after what he did? What purpose does permanent punishment serve? He's doing the work to change. He deserves the chance to prove it." Later that afternoon, Elijah visits the original precinct. now a model facility hosting law enforcement observers from across the country who come to study its transformed practices. Sergeant Diaz greets him in the lobby, now renovated to be more welcoming to civilians. Deputy Director Carter, always good to see you. Elena, please. It's just Elijah when I'm not here officially. They walk through the precinct, observing the changes, physical and cultural. Officers greet community members by name. The walls display artwork from local schools. Meeting rooms host community advisory sessions. The transformation is remarkable. You know what amazes me most? Diaz says as they pause by the desk where Elijah once stood humiliated. How quickly things changed once we actually tried. All those years thinking this was just how policing had to be. Systems resist change until they don't, Elijah responds. Then they adapt with surprising speed. She studies him thoughtfully. You could have shut us down, filed lawsuits, destroyed careers. Instead, you helped us become better. Why? Elijah considers the question carefully. The easy path would have been to destroy careers and walk away. The harder path was to stay and build something better. He pauses. Lasting change comes from transformation, not punishment. As he prepares to leave, a young black officer approaches, recognition dawning on his face. Sir, you're Deputy Director Carter, aren't you? From the training materials? Elijah nods. Your story changed how I approach this job, sir. Thank you for making it possible for people like me to serve without compromising who we are. The words land with quiet impact. From humiliation came transformation, not just of policies and procedures, but of human possibilities. Elijah Carter addressing a packed auditorium at his TED Talk, transforming systems through individual action. Behind him, slides display statistics showing the impact of police reform initiatives across the country. What happened in that precinct created ripples that became waves of change, Elijah explains to the attentive audience. The national training program we developed has now been implemented in over 200 departments nationwide. The audience listens intently as he continues. Sometimes the worst moments can lead to the greatest positive change, if we choose transformation over retribution. The easy path is destruction. The harder path, the path that creates lasting impact, is rebuilding something better from the broken pieces. As he speaks, the camera pans across diverse faces in the audience. Police officers, community activists, policymakers, all nodding in recognition of the truth in his words. The goal was never revenge, Elijah emphasizes, his voice resonating through the hall. It was reform, not just making one person pay, but making everyone better. That's the difference between justice and vengeance. The audience rises in thunderous applause as he concludes. Elijah acknowledges their response with a modest nod, the red TED logo glowing behind him. Has standing up for what's right ever cost you something important? Share your story in the comments below. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to Beat Stories for more powerful narratives of justice and transformation.
This isn't the end of the story. It's the beginning of what happens when truth meets visibility. At Beat Stories, we believe exposure is the first step to transformation. Subscribe and stay tuned, because the next story might be yours.